Are you getting a little bit tired of trading time for money? Do you feel a bit worn out by having valuable skills that everyone wants to access, but it costs you your time, your energy, your effort every single time you make a sale? If you're stuck in that paradigm, let's talk about how you can start selling something even more valuable than your time and your skills, called your intellectual property, and other things that exist on something called the value hierarchy. Let's explore the value hierarchy so you can set yourself free. Today we're going to discuss something called the value hierarchy. The nature of the way that we give value to the world has drastically changed in the last 10 to 20 years, and most people are stuck in the past. They're still adding value as though it's the 1800s. They're not updating themselves to add value in a digital world. The goal here is to be able to add value to anyone, anywhere in the world, so that someone in Bogota or Brazil or Brisbane could easily see your value and pay you for it, regardless of where you are in the world or what you're up to in the world. So let's get into the value hierarchy that answers that challenge. So at the very bottom of the value hierarchy is something called time and skills. So this is what we were taught in school. We were taught that if we put our time into the work and if we get more skills, then we'll earn more money. And the whole schooling system and even the university system is based around time and skills. So essentially turn up to work and be more skilled than somebody else, and that's your whole recipe for success. And it all relates to the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Age, we invented the hourly rate or the shift rate or even the annual rate for somebody's time and skills. And if you think about how the Industrial Revolution worked, it was all about clocking in, punch card systems, turning up, and one of the worst things you could do in the Industrial Age was not turn up on time. If you didn't turn up on time, you were a bad employee. So the time wasn't there, or if you did a bad job that day, the skills weren't there, that's also a very bad thing in the Industrial Age. So if you want to earn less money, don't turn up on time and don't have the right skills, and you'll definitely earn less money in the Industrial Age. And if you want to earn more money, lots of time, lots of skills, work really, really hard and be really, really reliable. And that's how you make a lot of money. And that is what almost all people do. I would dare say that this is something like 90% of people. That's how they earn their money, one form or another. They're not even aware that the rest of the hierarchy exists. Okay, the next level up is called intellectual property. So intellectual property is your know-how, your experience, your insights, your stories, your analogies, your unique take on the world, right? We call this the intellectual property. I'm not necessarily talking about legally defined intellectual property. I'm talking about the concept of intellectual property. The ability to trade based on what you know, based on your recipes, based on your know-how. This is all intellectual property. So if we think about someone like Stephen Covey, who wrote the iconic book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He took his knowledge and his experience and he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He codified the 7 habits into the book and into posters and into various forms of intellectual property. Now he passed away in 2012, but even to this day, those books are adding value to a lot of people all over the world because they like his intellectual property. Even though he's no longer with us, his intellectual property is still with us and his intellectual property is still valuable. All through corporate management and leadership courses, they always reference the 7 habits of highly effective people. So he wrote a book, he created posters, he created a consulting company called Franklin Covey, which all contains his intellectual property. Now, you have intellectual property too. Over the last 10 years, you've had experiences, you've solved problems, you've been able to add value to people, you've been able to help people to get over their objections, you've been able to help people to solve something that was really important that they solved, you've been able to deliver outcomes to people that they really valued, and all of that contains the raw materials for intellectual property. One of the things that I want you to do, and I want everyone to do, is to go looking across your last 10 years and see if you can find what is the valuable intellectual property that you've got unique experience with. What are the stories that are unique to you? What are the ideas that are unique to you? What are the insights that you've come up with? And turn that into intellectual property. You could write a book, you could write a white paper, you could construct some diagrams. All of that would be your intellectual property. Now, once you have intellectual property, you can move to the next level, which is called media. So media is something that only radio stations and television stations and newspapers used to be able to create. Now we live in the age of social media. Every single person can create some media that can go out and meet people all over the world. So it's important that you have valuable intellectual property first, because that's what makes your media valuable. But once you've got the intellectual property, you can start creating videos, you can start creating books or magazines or articles or reports or posts that go on social media. All of that can be created, and that's going to go out and find people all over the world who are looking for this type of intellectual property. Now, once this starts happening, it's less about your time and your skills, and you don't even have to show up. People are getting value from something you created, and you might have created that a year ago or 2 years ago, but it contains the intellectual property, it's packaged up into media, and it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing, people are still getting value from the thing that you created. And that's why intellectual property combined with media really does start to set you free. Once you're creating very valuable media, you can now collect data. Data is where you ask people to interact with you, and they give you their name, their contact information. They might tell you a bit about their current situation or what it is they're trying to achieve or what obstacles they're facing. And they're giving you the data and the information that you need because they love your media. And now they're saying, you can contact me, you can get in touch with me, right? This is where you build a big email database. This is where you build a really powerful CRM system because all of this data is coming in. Now, businesses that are doing really, really well, on average, they have 10 to 100 new leads per week where people fill in a form and they give over that data, and it's high quality data and it's current, it's relevant, based upon the media that they saw. So for example, you might see someone who's got a great podcast, they're creating great media, and at the end of the podcast, they say, get in touch with me, use the scorecard or fill in this quiz or this questionnaire, and all of that generates this data. And that data allows that business to grow and to scale. And because the media and the data and the intellectual property are now working together, it means that you've got this really great little system, right? Each one feeds on the other. And now you're creating a lot of value without having to physically show up or having to demonstrate your skills anymore. Now, at the top of the value hierarchy, this is where you're going to find software. So software, you could think of this as protocols. You could think of it as algorithms. You could think about it as artificial intelligence, but we're going to just call it software. Software is the ability to create some sort of a transformation without you physically having to be there. The software does the work. You code it up and create an algorithm, or you create a system once, and then that system takes over and people can interact with that system and get some sort of an outcome delivered for them. Some sort of value is created without you physically having to be there. And when people recognize that you've got very valuable software, that's where people will pay a subscription or they'll pay a fee in order to access the software, as opposed to having to access your time and skills, right? So the way that we get to software is time and skills create stories and insights. We turn that into intellectual property. We then turn the intellectual property into media. We then collect a lot of data, and we've got a growing database. And then we create something that is codified into software or into algorithms or into protocols. And then people want to access the software as opposed to the time and the skills. So we want to move our way up the value hierarchy. If you're running a business, you want to get away from selling time for money. You want to start selling intellectual property, media, and data, or growing and scaling through intellectual property, media, and data. And eventually you want to get to the point where you can actually sell software, algorithms, and protocols as the main thing that your business offers. Once you can do that, you can address markets anywhere in the world. If you're an English speaker, there's 1.5 billion people who speak English fluently all over the world. 70% of the world's population now has fast internet. So if you are creating software and you're talking about that through media, data, and intellectual property, if all that's linked, you're able to address massive markets without leaving your home, without putting on shoes, right? Without putting any of your time or skills in on a daily basis. You do it once, but you can sell it forever. And that is where you get set free, by moving up the value hierarchy. I hope that's useful. I hope that's helpful. Leave me a comment below. I would love to know whether your business has moved through the value hierarchy. Whereabouts are you stuck? What do you think's keeping you stuck? Let me know in the comments below, because I read every comment and it helps me to create even better videos next time. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a subscribe. It really does help the channel to grow. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.